What is up, everybody? This is DanDanTheFireman. I am going to show you how to change out your clutch on your Harley Sportster. I'm already draining the oil right here, and if you guys want to check that out, I have a video and I'll have a link in the description on how to change out your oil. Basically, all I'm doing is using the drain plug, pulling the oil out. What I'm doing today, though, is I need to replace my clutch that's in here. Now the thing is, my clutch, it felt like it blew up on me when I was riding back from the DGR, the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. I needed to get one anyways. It's about 28,000 miles on this bike. These clutches are known to blow up anywhere between 15 to 30,000 miles. So I'm here to replace all of it. So what you're gonna need when you replace the clutch is that you're basically gonna need a new clutch. I went with Barnett, and it's the extra plate clutch. I got the Kevlar version. There's a carbon fiber version, but I chose the Kevlar extra clutch plate. I also chose to get the Barnett spring clip. These are supposed to be better than the OEM one that comes with the Sportster, so I decided to just go ahead and get this. You're gonna need the clutch spring compression tool to get the tension off of the whole thing so you can get the actual plates out. Highly recommended that you get a Sportster manual that goes to your model year. That way you know what torque specs and how to actually do everything and what kind of oil you need to use for your Sportster. Now, one other thing that I got that was a little bit extra was a gasket kit. It comes with a bunch of O-rings and then a whole new gasket. That way I can just replace it all and call it good. That way it's more of like a newer type clutch and overall system. I don't have to worry about it, at least hopefully for another 30,000 miles or more. All right, so it is draining out. Now what we need to do is we need to take off my mid controls. Now you might have forward controls that are up here. All you have to do is take one of the bolts out and kind of swing it out. That way when you take the primary case off, you can kind of keep it all connected. For me though, I need to take it all the way off since it is mid control. Now that you got that off, kind of set it off to the side, keep the bolts kind of together, that way you don't lose them. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and loosen the tension on the clutch. That way when I pull this whole thing off, it's actually relieved a lot of the tension on the primary case itself. So you need to pull this little snap ring off. Now this isn't really any super specific order. These are all things that need to be done before you take the primary case off. Move the sleeve up. So this is how you adjust your clutch. This is the adjustment. You can move this up and down. This is just a stop bolt or a stop nut, and you just kind of move it to get a better clutch response. So what you need to use is a 9/16 and a 1/2 inch. The 1/2 inch goes right there. 9/16 go right there, and you just kind of loosen it all the way. Now before you ride and test your bike out after changing everything, you're gonna have to readjust this, and I'll kind of skim over that at the end, but you need to put it back. So we're just gonna loosen it up. So now that we have almost all the oil out after I was sitting it up, usually you want to do this on a stand so it stays nice and upright. I sat on the bike, had it vertical for a while, so we got all the oil out, or most of it out. All right, so now we have to take the primary cover off right here. You kind of want to do a star pattern, just like how you put on a car tire. We're going to take it off. Have your oil pan underneath it, because you are not going to get all of the oil out of the drain plug. You're going to get some off of here. But be very careful when you take this off, because there's a spring that will try to pop out. So be kind of careful. Make sure it doesn't fall in there. That way you don't lose it. But you know, you can always fish it out and then kind of clean it up later. But you need that. Keep it compressed in, because there's that spring that's going to want to pop out. So what you do is you kind of just let it fall out this way. Oh, got one more. Now you just kind of let it out slowly this way. And that's the spring I'm talking about right here. You do not want to lose that. Next, we release the clutch cable from the actual primary case. What we do is just use a flathead screwdriver and loosen it up. Now realize that you need to be turning it right to loosen it. Usually, you know, the lefty loosey, righty tighty, you're thinking that lefty, if you go left, it's going to tighten it up. So you need to go right, and it's going to release right here. Need a skinnier flathead. There we go. Oh, wrong way. Righty tighty. And it'll just kind of slide down your screwdriver. Don't lose this piece. Set it off to the side with all your other parts, and then this should just pop right out. There we go. So this is your clutch cable that branches out to here. I need to remove mine because I believe I smashed the O-ring that's inside here. That's what all this nasty grime is. It's leaking oil. When I would go off-road, I think I kind of hit it. So you just kind of pull this off, push it in, and kind of slide it off. It's pretty self-explanatory when you get to it. Kind of give it a double look. Make sure there's like no real damage to it. It looks fine to me. So we're just going to go ahead and set it off to the side. Now that the clutch cable is removed, I need to take off and not necessarily take off, I just need to back out the chain tensioner down here. I'm gonna have a picture up here right now of what it looks like. So it's just a nut that you're gonna loosen, and then I need to get an Allen key in there and just kind of back it out a little bit. That's all I'm gonna do. So just loosen it. Okay, so now the tension is off that. Now I gotta get an Allen key and loosen that. Backing it out just enough to get the tension off the chain. Now I'm gonna take the primary case off. There is kind of a way to do this. You need to take this one off. There's a bolt caddy corner down here that you need to take off, and then from there you just go all the way around this way. So take this one off, go down here, and go this way. I'm just gonna loosen it up. Now that I got everything off, including my shifter, I forgot to take that off. You need to take it off in order to get the primary case cover off. So don't lose anything with the shifter. And right now, it's gonna put a moment of truth to see how much damage is on here. All right, got some leftover oil in here. Don't wanna drip any. So this is the spring plate, and we need to get this thing off. This is under tension right now. So we need to get it off in order to take all the clutch plates out. So that's what we have this tool here for. I have a link in the description to it. Basically, it holds onto here and pulls it off. So this is what it looks like put all together. So inside here, I'm gonna grab onto this, and I'm just gonna twist it, and it's basically gonna pull this out. Now that it's attached to the shaft, we're just gonna go ahead and use a 9/16 to hold the little bolt section in place. And we're just gonna tighten it up. Now you just wanna put enough tension on here to make it nice and loose. You see how this is loose? All you're doing is putting tension on it. So you pull this, push this in, and remove the retaining clip, which is right here. Careful not to damage it. Kind of ease it out. You're going to need this later, so don't lose it. That's what it looks like. And once you do that, it's going to fall out like it is now. That's all that's holding your clutch plates together, or inside there. Double check everything in there, make sure there's no burrs or any crazy damage. But that's what you needed to take the pressure off. This is the spring plate. I'm actually going to replace it. So what you need to do is just get all the clutch plates out. Usually you can do this with a pick or a flathead, or if you have like a flathead and a magnetic tool, you can kind of grab it and it'll come right out. But it looks like I've got a bunch of pieces that just kind of blew up in there. They're all over. And that's all of them. All right, now that I have all this out, if you can see, my spring plate completely just blew up inside my clutch. This is what it looked like when it just fell apart. This is what we're trying to get rid of with the Barnett Extra Plate Clutch Kit. So I have it soaking in oil right here. It's been soaking in probably since this whole time. So what they want you to do, and what Barnett recommends, is that you need to start off with, now to start the new plate installation, you need to start with the friction plate, alternate steels and frictions until the last plate is a friction plate. So that's what we're gonna do in here. But while off camera, I was double checking, making sure this thing spins freely, spins okay, and that there's no more of the spring plate components blown up in here. So I am gonna do one more double check. And you're going to notice the difference between a friction plate and the steel. This friction plate has the Kevlar or carbon fiber, whichever one you got, has the little friction plates on it. And then the steel actually has, I mean, it's steel. It's straight up, looks like steel. There you go. So they're just kind of sitting in here soaking this whole time. So we're going to start with a friction plate. We're just going to get it going in there. And if it binds up and sticks, it's probably because of the oil you have. And you just keep going and alternating, and you should end up with your last plate being a friction plate. So here's the steel, and then now friction plate. Okay, now that we have all the friction plates and the steel plates in there, I'm all the way to the end. I don't need the spring plate anymore because I got the extra plate for this. So that's the whole point of getting this. So now I just need to reverse the order and put this back on. Fuck. Now that I got them back in, since they wanted to fall out, the reason why they want to fall out is because I have it on the kickstand. So they're going to want to fall out this way. So I have Nikki here kind of holding them in place. I just need to reverse the order and put this back on. So now it's going to feel like you're tightening it. You got to put the snap ring back in. Didn't even need to use my needle nose. I used my fingers. Okay, let go. Now we just kind of reverse the order when it comes to tightening it. It's going to feel like you're loosening it. You need to turn it to the left to tighten it, which in reality all you're doing is releasing the pressure off the spring plate. Double check your retaining ring, see if it's still holding. I'm going to take all this blue stuff off, and this part we need to get off. Kind of just hold it with needle nose, try not to strip anything, and just loosen it up. There we go. All the tension's back on. Make sure the spring plate looks good. Make sure the retaining pin's good. Now all I have to do is put the derby cover and the whole primary case cover, whatever you want to call it, back on. So what I got was a whole new gasket and a bunch of different O-rings. So I can just basically replace everything. I will have a link of this in the description, but I took the old one off, didn't want to reuse it, so I'm going to be putting this new one on. My back is fucking killing me. Now we're just reversing the order. I have my clutch cable connected in here, and you have this piece. What you do is you just get a skinny flathead screwdriver. We're just reversing the order, get it in there. Normally lefty loosey, righty tighty, but for this, you turn it left, and it's going to tighten it up, and it's just going to sink in. You're going to keep going until you hit resistance, and then kind of back it off just a little bit, about a quarter turn. So I found this rock. I need to keep it steady. Nikki over there is kind of holding it so that it's not falling over. But I need to fill my transmission fluid into here, the primary case fluid. It's just going to be what I use for the engine. It's going to be my V-twin SAE 20 weight 50, basically full synthetic. I got this little fancy funnel thing that I used for my oil filter. So I got it right here. It's gonna kind of help me pour it in there. So the goal is to fill up into the diaphragm spring. I had to look it up. I don't even know what the proper term was, but there's this spring inside. I'll take a picture of my Sportster manual so you can see what I'm talking about, and I'll put it up here right now. But I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And last time I did this, I remember it did not take a full quart. It was about 3/4 of a quart, so don't just go dumping everything in there. So do it nice and slow. Make sure you have your drain plug put in. I just put my drain plug in. I have everything set, so I'm not gonna waste any oil and nothing's gonna be kind of dripping on the ground. If you fill it up too much, it's gonna have a tough time finding neutral. It's gonna have a tough time shifting. If you don't use enough, same thing. So you have to find that sweet spot. So if you're getting trouble, double check where you're at with the fluid level, and then either add or drain it and add more, just kind of find that sweet spot. Now what I'm going to do after I put everything together, test ride it and all that stuff, is I'm going to take this and wash everything. As you can tell, my primary case is oily. I've been touching it with my hands. I've been trying to keep it nice and clean, but obviously it's not going to work out 100%. So I'm going to power wash it, clean it up. Plus it's going to help me find any leaks. I'm going to power wash around the new gasket and any spots where it could leak. That way, all of a sudden, like in a few days, if I see something, I can either tighten it down or do what I need to do. It's supposed to just touch the teeth of the diaphragm spring. Let me go ahead and I'm going to double check with a light. That's really the only way you're going to find out. All right, now we got to get this spring on. It can only go in one way, so we're just going to get it in there. Now that we've got the fluid in, we need to put the derby cover back on. We need to have the new gasket on. So there's these little teeth that you're gonna be able to kind of snap the O-ring in. Now that I have the derby cover on to spec, there should be an annotation right here to how many foot-pounds or whatever. I'm not in the mood to even do that. This has been a long day, guys. But now I need to put the mid-control back on, and I need to put my clutch, my shifter back on, and then kind of readjust the clutch itself. And then I have my chain adjustment. So I'm gonna take the inspection cover off and adjust it to where it needs to have the right amount of play. Once again, I'll have the annotation right here on how much of movement your chain inside is supposed to have in order to be okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so brand new day. I'm over here with this open. I just opened it up. I had to close it up for the night. I didn't want anything getting in there, but we need to adjust the clutch now. I have it on a rock right here. This way I don't have to use my stand. Stand is a lot safer because I'm gonna be cranking on this thing a little bit. But this is all I have here in apartment life. What I have here now is I loosened it up all the way. There's this nut right here. This can be, I believe this is a 9/16. Yes, 9/16 nut, and this is a 1/2 inch. You need to turn it and crank it all the way until you're going this way left, so it's going up, and then this one you're gonna loosen it all the way. And when you do that, you're gonna know that you're loosening it by when you look at your clutch handle, and it's gonna be like, it's gonna slowly be doing this, and it's gonna be all the way. So now you know it's completely loose. It's completely loose in here, and that's what this is right here. And now we need to adjust this to where it's perfect, and then we can mess with this and then get this back to where it needs to go. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's go ahead and finish up the whole Barnett clutch install, and let's just do that. Okay, when you take the derby cover off, this spring plate is sitting right in here, nice and snug. So set that off to the side, and what we need to do right here, this is the adjustment. In this piece of metal right here, this piece of metal right here is basically two pieces of metal, and inside, between these two pieces of metal, are two ball bearings. When you loosen it up a lot, the pieces of metal separate, and the ball bearings, I don't believe they'll fall out, but I'm not gonna test it, but that's basically what there is. There's two ball bearings in there, and this is two plates. So what we need to do is we need to tighten this to the point where these two plates are touching, and they're kind of like putting some type of tension on each other, and then we're gonna back it off a 1/4 turn. In order to do that, you need a flathead screwdriver, and normally you think righty-tighty is tightening it, and lefty-loosey is loosening it. On this right here, it's a left-handed turn to tighten it, and you're gonna feel the tension. You're gonna feel the two plates squeeze in, and as soon as you get the two plates squeezing in and you feel it, you need to now turn it a 1/4 turn loose. And that's it. That's all you have to do. You already have your clutch cable right here loose. That's what's going all the way up here. So then when we get up here and we need to adjust it, this inside piece is completely done. This is done now. We can put the derby cover back on, but we need to put the spring plate on first. This right here has a certain way of going on. It should just fit right there. It's actually the first time it actually went on perfect for me. Now we put the derby cover back on. You have to remember that you have this little slot, at least with the 2012 Sportster. I believe some Sportsters have different types of derby covers, but you notice that there's a little slot that right there is where it meets this portion with the clutch cable. So there you go. Now it's just a matter of putting the derby cover back on. Go ahead and hand tighten it for now, and then torque it down to the correct specs that you need to have to keep this on correctly. I will have an annotation on here of the correct foot-pounds with a torque wrench that you're going to want to put on. Now that we have this all put together, we need to adjust this because this is way too loose. It's not going to work. So we need to back this off, and we need to, there we go, just like this, back it off. And what that's going to be doing is it's going to be moving the handle. If you notice right here, I'm backing it off. See the gap right there? It's closing. Okay, what we need, that's too tight because we need to have a gap, a consistent gap in between here, about 1/8 of an inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pump it a few times, see how it feels. that's a little bit loose. Now we gotta go ahead and we need to tighten it. So once you have it into the position that you like, you're gonna go ahead and set this set screw or nut, whatever you want to call it. I'm not mechanically inclined, that's why I'm doing this, because I want to help some of you guys out. So set it there. Now remember, it's a 9/16 and a 1/2 inch. Not cranking it down, just kind of setting it there a little bit more than hand tight. And you want your cover back on. Careful not to rip it like I did. Just kind of slide it back on, call it a day. You have this clip ring, or at least you should, and it's going to hold this together. Now that's all you have to do when it comes to your clutch cable. Now you might have to make adjustments. when it comes to this. You're at a stoplight, you're pulling in the clutch, and you're supposed to be neutral, but you're still going forward. It means you have it too tight or too loose, so you just need to adjust it, kind of find that sweet spot. Now that the clutch is adjusted, I need to put my mid controls back on. You want to torque these down to the appropriate specs. Once again, I'll have the specs up on the screen right here. I'm just hand tighten it now for video purposes. And that's it, guys. That is the whole clutch install that is putting everything back together. Right now, it's just a matter of me riding around and adjusting the clutch as much as I can inside here. I already have the clutch part adjusted inside the derby cover, so I don't have to worry about that right now. But if I have to, just put it back on this rock and then take it all back off and just kind of make adjustments. But the actual clutch assembly is all done. The Barnett extra clutch plate is already installed. Everything's done. I don't have to worry about that. But now I just have to worry about adjusting this. So I need to test ride it. I want to see if it works, but it's all done.